point, what I'd like to do is maybe hand it off to Councillor Skelly to say a few words, if you don't mind, and she'll speak to our situation as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. First of all, I'm not the councillor for this ward. I'm the councillor for Ward 7, which is on the mountain. But I think it's important. I think that councillors need to really get involved with issues that go far beyond their borders, especially something that will have such a profound impact on the future of our city. Therefore, I think we all need to speak up, take a stand one way or the other, and do our homework and really engage residents both within our ward and outside our ward to find out how people truly feel about it. It's funny, when I do speak to the councillors around the table, I don't think one of them will deny that they thought the money would never come. And so when they said they were in favor of it, they said, well, it doesn't matter, it's a good point when we have the money. And I think they all fell off their chairs when the money came through. And speaking of money, when I first heard about the LRT, I was quite concerned because it's $1 billion. $1 billion that this province does not have. And that was one of the big issues that I felt strongly about. I do not think that we should be going back into debt to $1 million a year for the next 1,000 years to build something that we haven't asked for. I think that there is a huge problem with transit in the province of Ontario. We're seeing what was neglected in Toronto. We do have to do something, but this LRT is addressing a problem that doesn't exist. We have a real issue with congestion going to and from the city of Hamilton. The 403, if you go on the 403, and now what's happening on the Link and the Red Hill is it's becoming more and more congested throughout the day. But almost any time of the day that you get on the QEW or the 403, it's difficult to get to and from Toronto or even to Niagara and back from Niagara. This will not do anything to address the true congestion in the GTHA. In fact, will probably create more congestion than it actually solves. That is perhaps my biggest reason for being opposed to this. If we have to spend this $1 billion, that of course doesn't exist, and is the $1 billion that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will be paying for, then let's at least address an issue that is current and does exist today, and that is moving bodies to and from the city of Hamilton and through to Niagara. This $1 billion expenditure of the province will not move one good. It will not move one tomato. It will not move one box of wood. It will not move anything. We have a problem with moving goods in the GTHA, and we've been told that our transit service has to be addressed, not only moving people but also goods, and this again does not address that. The other issue I have with the $1 billion is it's not addressing another real issue. Part of our money was to build 2 GO stations, which we all, I think most people would agree, are very it's a progressive move, it's an important part of addressing transit. The real problem is we have not increased the number of trains that come to Hamilton and leave Hamilton, especially at the new West Harbour Station. I believe, and please don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 4 state trains leave in the morning and 4 return in the afternoon, and that's it. And I have asked continually, and this is from the new station, when are we going to see more GO trains? When are we going to see an increase in service? The problem is we cannot get access to more time on the current rails, which are owned by CN. The province has been negotiating for as long as I remember. I started covering this story when Dalton McGuinty was in office. We were going to get more GO service. We were going to get more GO service. They have not increased the number of GO trains. That is a real issue. Again, if we're going to be spending $1 billion on addressing transit, why are we not seeing that money being directed towards somehow, maybe it is laying more line. I don't know the cost of it, but I know that we don't have an increase in what is needed today, and that is more trains to Toronto and to Niagara. Excuse me. The other big issue with the current proposal is that we weren't aware of where the tracks were going to be. Even as a journalist, for the longest time I thought they were going on Main Street. And then when I found out it was King Street, I was stunned because of course, the International Village and how narrow it is. Why King Street? I'm told of the uplift. And then when we start going through all of these studies, and there will be more information made available, because I've hired somebody to go through all of the studies to actually confirm that the proposals in the study are the proposals that are being put forward are indeed based on what is being proposed in the study, in the findings of the study, and we're not finding that. We're not sure that the uplift is right there. So I'm just still trying to do enough homework to find out if indeed what is being put forward is what was suggested in these reports that were done. The other big issue is we had an incredibly well-respected head of transit in the city of Hamilton, a man by the name of David Dixon, who has left the city. I had a heart-to-heart when he announced, thank you, that he was leaving. And I asked him why, and I asked him point blank, were you taken off the LRT file? And he said I was taken off the LRT file, and I could not believe he was taken off the LRT file because he probably has more experience than anybody else in the city of Hamilton dealing with LRT. And I asked him, are we ready for this? And he said, we're not even close to being ready for this. There isn't any money allocated within this $1 billion to increase the number of buses it's going to take to feed an LRT. We are about $200 to $300 million short in terms of dollars that we need to purchase new buses and to increase our ridership. We're also really low in terms of our ridership. We're in the hundreds where we should be in the thousands of number of riders that we need before we can justify actually having light LRT. Which brings me to another thing, and that's the R. Most people think that we're talking about light rail transit, but we're talking about light rapid transit. When you talk about rapid, you diminish the number of stops along a line. And again, what do you want in a vibrant downtown? You want people to stop and shop and spend money and go to restaurants. But the rapid component of the LRT decreases the number of stops, which means that people will be stopping a kilometer apart. And for a lot of people, that means that this transit, bus or rail, goes by their business and doesn't stop. And I know from speaking to people in Newmarket, one particular restaurant owner, he's laid off 20 people, and he said, we have a BRT, and because there are so few stops, this empty bus flies by. And the businesses along this particular route are closing. So for those reasons, I am very much interested in a more progressive form of transit. I don't think we've explored all options. I think when you talk about something, it sounds crazy, but there is the gondola system. I mean, it sounds crazy, but when you start actually looking into it, it's not as crazy as it sounds, because it's a cable car that's elevated, and it is actually something that other cities are turning to move bodies. We have a big issue with connectivity of the upper part of the mountain, the upper part of the city, and the lower part of the city. This won't address that. It doesn't address it at all. Perhaps that's what we should be looking at. Where are people coming from? Who will be using it? And why are we building it? If we run out of money landing in the traffic circle, what good is it doing? Is this just to move people faster to McMaster? How many businesses will close? How many businesses will we have to, pieces of land, pieces of property will we have to acquire in order to build the LRT? How much will it cost to operate it? Who is going to pay for it? There's so many questions that are unanswered, and yet we're moving forward with building something that at this point nobody is screaming and yelling and saying we need it because there's so much congestion in the downtown core. I don't think there's a rush. I do think it would be great to have something, perhaps rail, perhaps something. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at a futuristic mode of transit, but there are so many unanswered questions, and it's so much money. And I worry about James Street. We know that they're going to be building a spur line. We have a vibrant James Street right now. Why are we doing this? And how much is it going to impact James Street? Why are we rushing? What's the rush? Well, the real rush is there's an election in 2018. And that's the bottom line. I think that current Premier Kathleen Wynne is very committed to this. It's part of her big move. There's questions. Will Andrea Horvath, would she commit to billion? Would Patrick Brown commit to billion? I think before we all rush and say, oh my God, we're going to lose this money, why don't we just put the question to all three party leaders? If there's a change of government, you know, will you support this, and will you continue to ensure that Hamilton gets the $1 billion? If we're not, if this isn't for her proposal, which is rapid transit, could we not still get some of that money to increase our transit that we need? I've just purchased a home in my ward. It's on Ronald Road, off Ronald Road, and I live in the second highest, the ward has the second highest number of social housing units. There are probably 3 communities within a stone's throw where I live, and the bus service is brutal. And we know just from the meeting last week that, excuse me, the highest number of, the number 1 place for students in the city to have a part-time job is at Lime Mall. We have to get transit there, and this does not address it. So for those reasons, I'm saying, just hold off, everybody. There's no rush for this. I don't know what the rush is. Why can't the Liberals say, okay, got your $1 billion, let's spend it properly? And then if there's a change of government, and there may be, there may not be, but if there is, let's ask both of the party leaders, will you support making sure that Hamilton gets that $1 billion for better transit in the city? That's it. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Councillor Skelly.